Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to Module 5, Introduction to Sociology. This module will cover politics and religion, family, and health. As usual, because there are so many PowerPoint slides, I've decided to divide the presentation into sections. The first section will cover politics and religion. The second section will cover health, and the third section will cover family. I would like to mention before I begin this video, I'm not going to be talking about politics and religion from a political or a religious point of view. That's not the purpose of this class. The purpose of this class is to talk about politics and religion from a sociological point of view. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. The terms that you need to know for your exam include politics and government. And if you've seen this little guy here, you know that this is Bill, who, spoiler alert, is signed into law in an episode of Schoolhouse Rock. And I would like to use Bill to explain the difference between politics and government. Politics refers to the process for making the rules or laws of a society. It's the way that the bills are created and sent to to the Congress, and people that actually sign the bills and write the bills to begin with are the government. Okay, so you have the politics, which is the process by which laws are made, and the government, which are the people who are doing the making. So that's very easy to remember. When we also talk about politics, we need to keep in mind the word power. Power means that you have the ability to get your way, even though there are people that may be resisting you. You have the power to overcome resistance, the ability to overcome resistance. Think about power in the sociological sense, much the way you would in the physical sense. If you're going to the gym and you're lifting weights, the weights are not moving themselves. You are having to overcome resistance to get them to move. That is power. Same thing in the sociological world. Power is overcoming resistance. There are two types of power you need to be familiar with: coercion and influence. Coercion is forcing someone to do something that they do not want to do. You are exerting force over them. For example, I might tell you in this class that if you do not turn in your work, you will fail the class. The fact of the matter is nobody in this class wants to do all that work, yet I'm forcing you to do that through coercion. However, I also hope to use a little bit of influence over you, which is legitimate power. Influential power means that I'm trying to convince you that what I want you to do is for your own good. So you may actually learn something in this course if you do these assignments and you take these tests and quizzes. So there's the difference between coercion and influence right there. And also, on that note, let's go ahead and talk about authority. Authority means that someone has the right or the legitimacy to exert power over someone. There are instances where someone can exert power over someone that is not legitimate. But for the most part, when we talk about power and authority, they often go hand in hand in this course. There are three types of authority you need to be familiar with: traditional authority, legal or rational authority, and charismatic authority. And all of these refer to the way that individuals receive their ability to exert power over you. Traditional authority, they are found in monarchies with kings and queens, and the traditional authority refers to the divine right to rule. Traditional authority is given by birthright. You do not, and we'll talk about this a little bit in a little bit, you don't actually go out and become elected king or queen. You receive that authority based upon who your parents are. Legal or rational authority is what we have here in the United States. These are the people that have this type of authority have the power given to them. They have the legitimacy given to them through voters like you and I. We either vote for and elect, or we appoint people to do things for us, to make the laws for us, to make the rules for us, to exert power over us. That is legal and rational authority. Now, here's the difference between traditional and legal and rational authority. When we're talking about traditional authority, if we don't like the way things are going, we really don't have a lot of choice. Kings or queens, basically they do what they want, and they do not really take into account people like you or I. Legal rational authority, if we don't like the way things are going, we have options. We have legal options. We have the options of impeachment. We have the options of voting someone out of office at the next election. We have the option of recalling a politician. So keep in mind that, while we have legitimate options, the only real options for traditional authority are simply to overthrow the king or queen. Last but not least, let's talk about charismatic authority. Charismatic authority is not given to individuals through birthright or through consensus of the people. Charismatic authority means that an individual has a je ne suis quoi, if you will. They have a charisma about them that makes people follow them. For example, if we're talking about men such as Martin Luther King, if we're talking about men such as Gandhi, if we're talking about Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc was 13 years old and she was telling the French army what to do. That is charismatic authority. There was something special about these people that made people follow them. And yes, I understand that very often charismatic authority can lead to, at least here in the United States, legal and rational authority, because many of our politicians are charismatic individuals. But charismatic authority does not always lead to legal or rational authority. So please keep that in mind as you go through this module. The different types of governments, these are couple of the different types of governments that are out there. There are monarchies. Monarchies are the kings or queens that we talked about that govern with traditional authority. I want you to understand also about the monarchies that there are two different types of monarchies. There are absolute monarchies and constitutional monarchies. A constitutional monarchy is a monarchy that is a figurehead, such as the Queen of England. We understand, of course, that the Queen of England and the royal family have no real power. They don't really actually have anything to do with the day-to-day government of the decision-making process of England. They are just there in terms of figuratively. We talk about the people that run the government over in England, the Prime Minister and Parliament. They are not part of the royal family. However, an absolute monarchy, such as the King of Jordan, is not only the figurehead, but he is the king that runs the country. I mean, he makes the decisions over in Jordan. He's not just some fodder for the paparazzi, if you understand what I'm saying. Then we have the democratic government, either direct or representative. Here in the United States, we have a representative democracy. We are electing people to represent us. And basically, as I mentioned earlier, in a democracy, if we don't like how things are going, we have options. We can vote people out of office or whatnot. Last but not least, let's talk about authoritarian type governments. When we talk about authoritarian type governments, these are governments that have come to power, people in the government that have come to power either legally and are now refusing to leave, or illegally and are controlling everything. The fact of the matter is, in many instances, these individuals, such as Stalin, Mussolini, Hitler, Kim Jong-un, you're seeing these people that cultivate almost a cult of personality. through the media, meaning that they create an image almost like that they are godlike. I know that there was a belief in North Korea for a number of years that, and it may still exist today, that Kim Jong-un is a god. He's a god incarnate, meaning he doesn't eat, sleep, use the bathroom, what have you. The fact of the matter is, many of these authoritarian governments uh, often focus only on themselves and have very little, if no interest whatsoever, into the common good of the everyday citizen. So, those are just a couple of the types of governments that are out there that you will see on your exam. Here in the United States, special interest groups seem to play a big role in who is elected into political office. And this makes a lot of sense when you realize that it takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of money to become elected. It really does. And a lot of people are worried about the influence of money in politics, but these, special interest groups, they are essentially contributing their money to political candidates who are going to uh, vote favorably for them. It says that on the PowerPoint, it says they're trying to spend their money to influence elected officials and our public opinion. And some people go, well, that basically is buying votes or buying a candidate. And I can see that. I can see that argument, but it costs an awful lot of money to run for politics, to run for political office. So you have to keep that in mind, that these special interest groups are often needed. I also want to talk about terrorism and war. You'll need to know these definitions for your exam. Terrorism refers to violence or the threat of violence to achieve a religious or a political agenda. I want to point out here that you cannot look at individuals and determine whether they are terrorists. We have incidents of international terrorism as well as incidents of domestic terrorism. International terrorism is terrorism that originates in groups outside of the United States. Domestic terrorism originates in groups and individuals here in the United States. And when we talk about when we talk about domestic terrorism, you can think of incidents such as the Oklahoma City bombing of 1995, Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, Eric Rudolph, the guy who blew up who's blowing up abortion clinics and who bombed the 1996 Olympic Games. So keep in mind that a lot of the media is focused on terrorism, but they're not showing you the entire picture. Terrorism is much more than just one group of people or one individual. War is the declaration of hostilities and aggression from one recognized nation to another. And keep in mind that there have been a lot of instances of war in the history of the United States as well as throughout the world. And we will talk about why war is important on the next slide. The fact of the matter is, war is very important to the United States because we are the world's single military superpower. The United States spends as much on our military as the rest of the world's nations combined. Think about that for a second. One nation, the United States, spends more money on our military than the whole rest of the world put together, because we have to protect not only ourselves, but our allies as well. And there's also this military industrial complex that you need to think about, that there is a close association between the federal government, the military, and defense industries. And we are seeing these individuals work closely together. Now, the reason for conflict, regional conflict, is militarism. Everybody wants to be protected. Everybody wants to have a well-funded, well-stocked arsenal and army to protect themselves. I've always heard, if you want peace, prepare for war. And last but not least, let's go ahead and talk about politics and the sociological perspectives. Structural functionalism says that the political structure here in the United States is one part of the puzzle. And it also says that different groups of people have equal access to political power. The conflict perspective says that special interest groups make sure that that is not the case, that people who have more money have better access to life chances, including political power. And symbolic interactionists look at the political aspect of advertising through the media and how that not only the media, but schools and peers and family, and how they impact your political beliefs. In fact, if we actually stop and think about it, many of our political beliefs reflect our family members, at least for the first couple of years of our life. They have a great influence over us, as does the media, as does our family and friends, as does schools, as does everything around us. It impacts us and it impacts how we see the world around us. Let's go ahead and talk about religion. And I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. Again, I'm not talking about religion from a religious standpoint. I'm talking about religion from a sociological standpoint. So therefore, the questions that we need to ask ourselves are why religion is important and how religion benefits society. Because the fact of the matter is, if religion did not benefit our society, many sociologists believe that religion would not be a part of our society. Religion is the institutionalized system of shared beliefs and rituals that identify a relationship between the sacred and the profane. We're going to explain these in greater detail, but I will have you know for now that beliefs refer to the propositions and ideas that are held on the basis of faith. We'll talk about faith in a minute. Rituals are the practices that we engage in based on those beliefs. And sacred and profane come from Emil Durkheim, which we will talk about in just a second. So let's skip ahead. If I'm talking about faith, I'm talking about believing in something based on a feeling or a conviction rather than having actual proof. And if you believe in things that you don't have proof in, that's absolutely your right. That's no problem. There are lots of people out there that have faith in things that they do not necessarily have proof for. If we talk about things that are profane, I want you to understand I'm not talking about the word profanity here. Emil Durkheim said that profane things are just ordinary, average, run-of-the-mill type things. But sacred things, on the other hand, are to be revered. They are to be held in reverence. They are to be held in awe because they are viewed as extraordinary. If we give an example of the difference between profane and sacred, if we are talking about books, for example, if we look at a book that would be considered profane, meaning that it is just your everyday book, you may look at this Scrabble dictionary. This Scrabble dictionary is ordinary. There's nothing really special about it, except for the fact that my wife and I use it a lot when we play Scrabble. If we talk about books that are sacred, we would be talking about books such as holy texts, books like the Quran, books like the Bible, books like the Torah. Books of those nature would be considered sacred. So again, remember, profane, just average, ordinary; sacred, extraordinary. I want to talk about churches. A church is not necessarily the building that I'm referring to. Rather, it's an institution. It's a type of religious organization, and it is well integrated into larger society, and it has persisted for centuries. Different churches. I will mention also one type of church here is the state church. We don't see that here in the United States. A state church is a church that is formally allied with the government. They run hand in glove with the government. Some countries are, their governments are based on religious law. Okay, not here in the United States, though. A universal church is not really a church like most people would think. It's just a united moral community. Excuse me. And last but not least, here is a denomination, a church which is independent of the state. It recognizes religious pluralism. So in the Christian faith, you would have Baptists, you would have Methodists, you would have Lutherans, Catholics. In the Muslim faith, you would have Sunni and Shiite. In the Jewish faith, you would have Orthodox Jews, you would have other kinds of Jews, different kinds of Jews, different types of religions that are out there. And a cult is something that a lot of people use as a derogatory word here. But from the sociological perspective, it's not necessarily derogatory. It just simply means that this religious organization is largely out of our cultural standards. And I'll have you know that most major religions today started out as a cult, because it says that most spin off from a conventional religion, and that's true. A cult is generally based on a charismatic leader and a small group of followers. And eventually, over time, one of two things is going to take place. Either the cult is going to go away, or it's going to get so big it becomes recognized as a church. I will mention here that some principles and practices are unconventional, and many cults do have that stigma of being deviant or evil. And many cults also do demand an adaptation of a radical lifestyle, and so that many of these cults are accused of brainwashing. But keep in mind that for purposes of this course, a cult is simply a religious organization outside of society's cultural traditions. There are individuals in religion who believe that the end of the world is always going to come. They believe that the world is going to be destroyed. The good people are going to be saved. The bad people are going to die. And we call this the millenarian movements. We've seen this. I've seen this many, many times throughout my life, and the world still is going on. As far as religious commitment goes here in the United States, 7 out of 10 people, or about 70%, claim that they receive comfort and strength from religion. And I will mention here also that religious diversity stems here in the United States from the constitutional ban on government-sponsored religion, as well as our high immigrant population bringing their different religious beliefs to our country. So when you see that number 7 and 10 that receive comfort and strength from religion, I want you to understand I'm not talking about any one particular religion. I'm talking about all different religions together, because the United States is a melting pot of religion. We have people who have different religious beliefs, and we have people who don't have religious beliefs at all. And either way, that's fine, as long as you're not hurting anyone else. That's absolutely fine. I will mention, however, that the importance of the church and the importance of religion has declined in our everyday lives, especially if you compare, I don't know, the social world of Emil Durkheim, who lived in France in the 18 and 1900s. He saw that the Catholic Church particularly had almost a stranglehold on people's everyday lives. But nowadays we see that we are more secular, and we are focused more on science rather than the supernatural. In fact, we're more likely to be born, we're more likely to get sick, we're more likely to die in the presence of physicians rather than church leaders. We're also more likely to get married in civil ceremonies as opposed to religious ones. I'm not saying that that is the end all be all. I'm saying that we're seeing a decline of how important religion is to our society in that respect. We're also seeing things like a civil religion, which is a quasi-religious loyalty binding individuals in a secular society. And we see a lot of citizenship qualities, at least here in the United States, taking the place of many religious qualities or adopting many of the religious qualities there. So for example, when we talk about standing for the national anthem, and when we talk about waving the flag at the parades, we see that. I know you guys remember from the Module 4 assignment of individuals, football players who were kneeling for the national anthem and the great deal of flack that they have received. You see that standing for the national anthem is considered to be almost a civil religion. And last but not least, the theories or perspectives of religion. Structural functionalism argues that religion brings many things to society, many good things to society. Many people, as you saw, find strength and comfort in religion. And not only that, many religions do a lot of good work. They go out, they feed the poor, they help people get jobs, they help clothe people. They are doing a lot of positive things, and they are performing a function in society that is beneficial. Symbolic interactionist, or let me go back. The conflict perspective, on the other hand, going back from structural functionalism to conflict, the conflict perspective argues that religion brings many bad things to society. Karl Marx, who you may remember talking about the conflict perspective, Karl Marx said that religion was the opium of the masses. Basically, he meant that religion was numbing people's minds to the status quo of society so that the rich and the powerful could maintain their wealth and power, with the poor people and the working class being promised a reward in the afterlife if they did their things, if they lived their life according to the rules. Is what I'm trying to say. Conflict theorists also point out that many problems have been associated with religion, including slavery, including oppression of women, including wars. A lot of people have been killed in the name of religion. The Crusades, the Salem witch trials, things of these nature point out the conflict perspective of religion. And last but not least is symbolic interaction. Symbolic interaction refers to the interpretation that individuals take from their religious beliefs. Religion answers, for many people, two questions: what happens after we die and why we're here? Now, the fact of the matter is, I don't know the answer to these questions. But if you have faith, your religious beliefs are going to probably answer those questions for you. That's up to you to decide. And those beliefs and those attitudes towards the world around you have been transmitted to you through religious beliefs, particularly when I say religious beliefs, particularly through the media, particularly through the church, particularly through schools, friends, family, and especially the family. Again, with the political beliefs and the religious beliefs, the first few years of your life, your religious beliefs are more than likely going to mirror those of your parents and your immediate family. And that is symbolic interaction. And ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have for this module, or for this video. If you have any questions, please reach out to me, and I'll see you online.